Well, we certainly have to be friendly, right? All of you are almost close enough for me to hug. I love hugging people, so that's fine. Actually, I'm really excited that the people are here. Are you not coming in? Oh, you're going to stay out there, okay. It's the lady sitting in the hall because she's not too comfortable listening to people, I guess. Anyway, Hans did an interview with me today. He's the one that's filming tonight. And I guess it's going to be available over the internet?
Yeah, if you want to, yeah, we'll do that.
Oh, I didn't know how you were going to make it available.
Yeah, I confer with Anja and we fix something.
Okay.
We will upload it on YouTube.
Oh, all right. Anyway, I was born on the planet that you know as Venus, but not on the physical planet, but on the astral level, which is a higher dimension of a different frequency, where we have energy bodies. We don't have physical bodies. And I had an opportunity to come and live on Earth as an experiment to see how a person who manifests a physical body on Venus can live in your society and how they would be affected by the conditions on Earth. Because we live with a different awareness. We don't have all the negative energy and powers and thoughts that exist on Earth, so it took some adjusting for me to get used to. I couldn't understand when I first came here that people thought they were the bodies. I thought, they don't know they're a soul in a body. And the body is just like a car or something that you use for your surroundings. It's not what you are. But most people didn't know that. And I was surprised. And I was only a child, and I wasn't allowed to ask people questions like that because I was a child, and in your societies, we have a certain place, as a child. And we're not allowed to speak out very much about how we feel or what we think. It's not allowed. And it was very difficult for me. When I lived on Venus, we live in society that is very harmonious and very beautiful, and the whole planet, the people, have one understanding and concept of the Creator, and that their soul, we're aware of this in the time we're born, so it's totally different. And we manifest things that we need and use just from our thoughts, from the energy around us. And we don't eat, we absorb energy to exist. So I had to come to Earth and learn that this body has functions. You have to eat, you have to sleep. I had to learn so much, and I couldn't realize how difficult a human body is to take care of. It really is difficult when you think about it. And there was things I didn't want to do. I didn't want to sleep, and I didn't want to go to the toilet. I thought that was the worst thing I ever heard of. And they had to convince me that these were functions beyond my control, because I was used to having control over everything. And it's kind of difficult when you come to a place and you got a heavy body, which at first I felt like I was in a suit of armor and I could hardly see out of these little eyes. And everything, I didn't have a whole perspective of my vision was not there anymore. It was very difficult. And also on Venus, we can think of a color or a fabric that we want to feel. If we think of clouds and we create a bed that feels like clouds and looks like sunshine, you can do everything. And it's absolutely remarkable. And I loved it so much. And of course I missed that when I came to Earth, because it was impossible here. You could not create what you want. You had to accept whatever you got. And I found out on Earth, life is what you get, not what you want. It's just what you get, and you got to deal with it. And it's difficult. And I learned to love and appreciate the people of Earth and how difficult it is for you, because I experienced it myself, and now I know. And I love every person. And when I see a person, I see the soul rather than the physical body, because I have this ability. And it makes it much easier for me because everyone is my friend that I haven't met yet, but I know you from somewhere else, I'm sure. And souls are such unique individual sparks of God, and every experience you have creates a facet which makes a particular individual jewel that creates you as yourself. And you don't realize how beautiful you are. Absolutely. And when we learn to love each other as the Creator intended, which means unconditional love. I love you just because you exist and for no other reason. Not because you're rich or pretty or talented, just because you are here. That is the only reason we should love each other. That's the Venusian way. And that's what I came to Earth to teach people. Our perception is the only difference between us and you. We have a different perception and idea of how things exist because we learn a lot differently than you learn on Earth. We don't have organized religions that teach you out of fear, because many of your religions on Earth, the tool they use to make you obey certain rules they create is fear. Because if you don't obey, you're afraid of what will happen to you. And I realized that people didn't know how to be free, how to really exist in freedom, and realize that you can enjoy everything. God created everything for man to enjoy. He doesn't judge you if you do this or if you do that, because nothing is good or bad in God's eyes. Everything is an experience that's valuable for the soul. That's how we look at it. And so I lived on Venus as a child, 130 of your Earth years, but I was only a small child, around 7 or so. I looked like one. And they told me I had a karmic relation to a child on Earth named Sheila, and I had the opportunity to do this for my people so they could study what the environment, how it would affect someone growing up and living in the environment continually. Because most of our people just come to Earth and have certain jobs and things they perform for short periods. They don't live here for a long time. So I was the first experiment to come here and grow up in society and learn about the different cultures, ideas, concepts, and people that exist on Earth. And this little girl, she had been with me before on Earth in the French Revolution, and I was working for the people against the government at that time, and they wanted to behead me. And she told them she was me because she was my twin, so they beheaded her so I can continue my work. So in this lifetime, I would be taking her place. When Sheila died, I would continue living with her family as the replacement, and I would go through all the karmic debts that she had to go through because she wasn't emotionally strong enough to handle all this, and so she had to leave, and I was to replace her. That's how I came to Earth. My uncle Odin, he's a scientist. He also manifests the physical body. He works on a big mothership in the laboratory as a scientist for different technology and things that give to the Earth people. And he works here sometimes in Switzerland, different places all over the Earth for short periods of time. He went with me to the city of Retz, which is the capital of our planet, and it's under a climatic dome on the physical surface of Venus. It exists in physical reality and in the astral. And that's the city where we can do a special meditation with our energy and technology and manifest the physical body to exist in the physical societies on Earth and within the whole physical realm. And that's what I did. And then I walked to the spaceship with my uncle, a small ship, a saucer, what you call it, a convoy. And we took that to a large mothership and then came close to Earth. And then I traveled with a small ship to Tibet, and I lived in Tibet for 1 year in a monastery, and it's called Agam Des, and there I adjusted to the physical Earth because it's located also on different dimensions. And there I learned how the physical body functions and to use my voice and to learn balance and how to operate this body, which was really a trial for me and for the monks in the monastery. Believe me, I put them through a lot of things because I didn't want to accept a lot of things, and they had to explain everything to a small child, but a girl included, which is all men in the monastery. So it was quite thrilling and exciting, and it's one of the most favorite stories, I think, in my book for people because it's funny. But it took me a while to use my voice because we communicate on Venus with mental telepathy rather than speaking. And so I had to exercise my vocal cords, which is horrendous because I know it sounded terrible for the poor monks. They sent me far away from the monastery, and they said it was to hear my voice echoing from the mountains, and I was sure it was because it sounded so terrible. So I learned mantras as a way of, like singing, and chanting, and that's how I strengthened my vocal cords. And I have CDs with meditation, this Journey of Soul, that I created with different musicians that volunteered from all over the world, Africa, India, places like that. And this journey is to let you experience the soul leaving the earth and going through the different dimensions to the center of creation where the God is, and then gently bring you back to earth. And that is where I sing the mantras that I learned in Tibet. And you can hear, that was before I had the stroke. I had a beautiful voice, but I had to learn to speak again after my stroke. I had to learn to walk and speak, but at least I'm able to talk to people and they can understand me, and I can walk around a little bit. So I'm happy for that. Anyway, I want to share this with you and tell you as much as I can, but the rest of it is available in my books, which now are in English. They weren't before, they were all in German. Because when I wrote the book in the 60s, it wasn't published. It laid in my closet because I raised 4 children on Earth. And so it wasn't published in 1991. It was published by Wendell Stevens of America. He was a UFO researcher and a colonel in the U.S. Air Force. And he took all these pictures of UFOs and he did research. And he's the one that published my book first. And then I got invited to Germany, and the publisher there published that book, and I wrote 2 more while I was in Germany. Angels Don't Cry, which is my story of my life on earth and marrying, having children, and so on, and the terrible experiences that Sheila would have went through if she'd have been here. And then there's a spiritual book I wrote, which is called My Mission, and this is a trilogy.
My Message.
My Message. It's three books in one. It's called the Venusian Trilogy. And now it's available in English for the first time. Just started last year, put on the market. So it's all available here, and for those who buy something, I will autograph it for you tonight personally while I'm here. And I will tell you a little bit more about my life. I lived in Tennessee in America, and I was living in Chattanooga, and when I was growing up there, it was still the days when there was a lot of prejudice against black people by the white people. It was just their society and the culture at that time. And of course I didn't understand it and I didn't accept it, but I lived through it and it was very interesting as an observer. And pretty sad too, you know, when you have to see things happening like that. And you're a child and there's not much you can do. But I learned to stand up for what I believe and to tell other people, if you don't feel that way, you have to let people know so we have a chance to overcome all of this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was not easy as a child. They called me bad names and everything just because that I was standing up for the black people in that area. Yeah, they didn't like me very much, but they learned to love me later. At first it was hard. And then I grew up, and when Sheila was leaving her mother at the time, her mother had been married a couple of times, and the stepfather was abusive to Sheila. And so she was sending Sheila to the grandma from Florida to Tennessee. And the bus crashed and Sheila was killed, and I replaced Sheila. And I went to the grandmother in Sheila's place with a note, just like Sheila had. Everything was planned, and they didn't know the difference because the grandma hadn't seen her in a year or two, and then she didn't see her mother for another 3 or 4 years, so everything worked out fine. It's just they just thought I was their little girl. And then later, they found out the truth and they accepted it. They accepted me and loved me. And so it's an interesting book anyway. I had to kind of sneak in. That's what my grandson said. My grandson said he was watching a UFO program. He's now 15. He was only 5 at this time. And he said, Grandma, I was watching about those UFOs on TV and how the Army shoots at them and everything else. He said, they should have been smart and snuck in like you did. That was his idea, that I snuck in, so I was smart. And I didn't know I was coming. So that's a child's perspective anyway. But my grandchildren are beautiful. I have 3. I have 2 grandsons and I have 1 granddaughter. And I have 3 sons and 1 daughter. And I have a son who's 47 or 48, and his little daughter his name is Joe. His daughter's name is Josie, and she's 5. And then I have a daughter who's like 46, and she has a 15-year-old son and a 13-year-old son. And I have Xandar, who lives in California. He's not married. He's like 42 or 3 or so. And I have the youngest son, who will be 40 in 2 years, and that's my baby. He lives also in California. The 2 last boys play music. They're talented musicians, and actually we put the youngest one on YouTube playing his guitar and singing the blues so people can see him, so I can brag about him, just like a mother. But that was the most thrilling thing on earth that I experienced, was being a mother. Having a child was the greatest experience I could ever have. And that's, people ask me, what was my greatest experience? Having a baby. Bringing a child into the world. That was something you can never outdo that one. Except for when I meet people like tonight. And I'm very excited to meet you, and I feel a lot of love, and I appreciate it a great deal. And I hope that you can feel how much I love you too. We're going to talk a little more about my life. When I first came to Earth, it was very difficult for me at first. because I didn't know what people expected of children here. I had to learn that. They told me the basics about the family and about children, about school, and I learned all that stuff. But I had to learn how children fit into your society. And I was the very quiet child for a long time. And naturally, I'm an outgoing and lively person, but I had to observe a lot of things. Because sometimes, if someone wanted something, I could sense it, with my telepathy, and then I would say where it was, and they would look at me like I was crazy. And I would say, oh, I can't do that. And then I had to watch the other children, how they behave. I had to be very observant to fit in, so I wouldn't, they wouldn't think I was crazy or a strange little child and I'd be isolated somewhere. So it was very hard to fit in. And Sheila's family was difficult enough because her mother was the black sheep of the family. She was the youngest daughter, and she was the prettiest, the blonde, and the really bubbly, beautiful one. And the other children in the family were more dark-haired, and so she kind of didn't blend into her own family. And they all tried to protect and take care of her, but she always got into trouble. She was the mother. She was married at 14 and had Sheila at 15. That's really young. And because at that time the grandmother had 11 children, and she went to the neighbor who she knew very well and told her son, you can choose one of my daughters for your wife. And he took the youngest and the prettiest. And she didn't know anything. She's 14. She still played with dolls. And when she went home with him on the wedding night, she ran away because she didn't know what he was expecting from her. And she went to her mother, and then her mother told her what she was supposed to be expected to do then. It was a little bit late. So it was kind of traumatic for the mother. And eventually she went back to her husband, and they had a child. Apparently she did what she had to learn, but it must have been difficult for someone that age. And at that time there wasn't much education or communication in families to teach children about things like this. And they just were put in a situation and had to deal with it. And it was pretty hard, I suppose. So her mother was a special person, but when I went to Tennessee and I was at the grandmother's house, all of the brothers and sisters gathered in the mother's living room to decide what they were going to do with me, because I was the youngest daughter's child, and they said, we can't expect you, the grandmother, to take care of this child. And the grandmother said, well, of course I will. It's my grandbaby. And they said, no, put her in a home, put her in an orphanage, or do something with her. And my cousins were laughing, oh, they're going to put you in a home for kids. And they were thinking it was funny, and I was like terrified. I was like, oh my God, am I going to be in some kind of a big building with lots of children? I won't know what to do. And I was really frightened. And my grandmother said, no, I'm going to take care of her and raise her. And one of my uncles said, that's fine, and I will help you, Mom. I'll make sure that we get everything you need from the government to take care of the child, and we will support you. And so I got to stay with my grandmother, and I was very happy about that. Because she was the only other person I knew on earth when I first came here, except for a cab driver that brought me to her house. So it was kind of strange for me. I'm on a whole new planet with a bunch of strange people, and then they're going to toss me in a home somewhere. And no, I didn't like that. But my grandmother was the most wonderful lady, and her grandparents came from Norway, and she told me this. She was very proud of that. They were named Orange, and they came from Norway. And I thought, I'd never seen Norway, so I was excited about coming this time. I wanted to see where these people came from because they're part of my heritage on earth. And in order for me to take Sheila's place, I'll explain to you that my soul, because I didn't have a physical body at the time, accompanied Sheila during her birth process. And I received the same genetic imprints like a twin would do. So I received that in order for everything to be proper spiritually, you know. The spiritual masters okayed all of this, but they had to go through this process in order, when I manifested a body, I would be identical to Sheila and live with her family, and I would have an earth body like Sheila had. So that's how the process was created. Before Sheila was born, I accompanied her in the birth process, received the genetic imprint from her, and then when I manifested the body, I had the body of Sheila, or her twin. So that's how I came into your society. I know it's complicated, but I had to have the spiritual okay from the Brotherhood and the Masters before I could ever do this, because otherwise it was against spiritual laws. And we have to obey spiritual laws. At least the Venusians know that. Everything they do it within a certain boundaries, because that's what they're taught. And it's what they believe. They know it's right. And we don't want to break any laws or invade any private principles of people. And Venusian way is that we abide by the laws of God, not the laws of man. But we abide by society's laws when we're in that society, of course. But deep in our soul, our greatest tribute is to the Creator that created us. That's how we look at it. And dogs. We have a little dog running around outside, which I love animals, so it's okay. Animals and people, it was Hans asked me this afternoon, and I explained to him, yes, animals, minerals, plants have a soul just like human beings. And I'll explain that to you. Our concept of God and the Creator and our souls, I'll explain a little concept. The concept is we're in the physical realm, and God exists in the realm where it's pure energy, and wherever it's the source of creation, where all the energy exists that created everything that is. And if you take a centrifuge, something that spins material at a high rate, and you throw in rocks and sand and water, and it spins, and the rocks will go to the outer edge, then you have the sand, and then the water, and in the middle there just be pure energy. This would be where God exists. And the outer edge where the rocks is the physical where we are. And to explain it to you, I'll try. The Creator is a great source of energy. And it existed, and it was sitting there thinking, wow, I'm so powerful, it's so wonderful. What can I do with all this power and energy I have? I have to do something wonderful. So the Creator thought, well, I'll create wonderful galaxies, universes, and systems in different dimensions of energy that exist in different life forms. And everything I create will recreate from itself in non-ending cycles. And therefore, I will never cease to exist. I will exist for eternity through my creation. That was the whole point. And it was all done out of love. So the basis of our creation is love. Love is the most powerful energy that exists. It overcomes anything and everything. It's endless. It knows no boundaries. And the more you love, the more you receive. This energy is flowing constantly. And it's free. You can give it freely. There's nothing wrong with love. Love is the most powerful energy there is. And it's the most healing. It's the most beautiful. That's what we were created out of. And that's what soul is. And so when soul was created from this energy, which is the creator, soul didn't know that it existed. It was, but it had no idea that it was because it had no experience. And so this little spark, this little piece of energy, God said, I have to send you down through the different dimensions to the physical realm, and so that you can gather experience and learn what you are. That's the whole purpose of our existence. And so we're created in the God worlds. Then we go over the soul dimension, and then we go into the first dimension, which is called the etheric. And that is the dimension where God first divided the energy into negative and positive polarities. And when we come into this dimension, then the soul has to gather energy from this dimension to protect the soul, because the soul can't exist in the lower dimensions without protection. So it gathers an energy body called the etheric body that's around the soul. And this energy also that the soul collects gives the soul the ability to understand that it is part of the Creator. It's the divine energy that flows on the etheric. And so the soul now knows it's part of the Creator, even though it is a separate individual entity forever. And then it goes into the next dimension, the etheric. Then it goes into the causal dimension. In the causal dimension, it collects the energy and the soul, energy body, a causal body. And this energy from this dimension gives the soul the ability to remember all of its existences that it ever has. And it's called the dimension for the Akashic records also. But actually, they're carried within the soul itself. And then the next dimension that the soul goes into on its journey downward is the mental dimension. And here it gathers energy of body, the mental body. And this energy from this level gives the soul the ability to think, and with its thinking process, create. Have the imaginary creation powers. And so then it travels to the next dimension, which is the astral dimension. And there it collects an energy body. And the energy from this level gives the soul the ability to feel and have emotions. And then the last trip it makes is, boom, it's in the physical. But when you come to the physical, it collects energy, of course, in a body from this dimension. But when soul first entered, it came in the mineral form, as a stone or a crystal or a mineral in water, whatever. In the mineral state, that's the first evolutionary stage for the soul in the physical, is to go through the mineral and serve a purpose, and then it leaves for a short time and chooses another body, and it does this until it's experienced every form of mineral possible in the physical realm, in every galaxy, on every planet, believe it or not. You go through this as soul in the mineral state, and then when you serve a purpose as the mineral, and you finish the whole mineral realm, there's no more minerals you can be. Then you're ready for the next step, which is the plant. And then you go through the whole thing again as a plant in every possible form, vegetables, trees, beautiful flowers, weeds, every plant possible on every planet and every galaxy. I mean, it staggers the imagination to realize how long a soul can exist. But we have eternity. We're forever. We don't never die. We just change energy forms of existence and have different experiences. But we live forever. We exist forever. And then you go through this whole thing with the plants, and then finally the animal, and go through the animal staging. There's many animals, fish, think about insects, things that you never can imagine that you have been before you ever become a person. The person is the last step in the physical realm. And then it becomes complicated because you form relationships with others and attachments, and complications arise. And of course you live on different planets and different solar systems, and you've lived for millions of years. You're here on Earth many times in many places, and you've existed forever because you have to experience everything possible. That means being a murderer, being murdered, being a warrior, being the most brilliant person, being a pianist, being talented, being beautiful, being rich, being everything. You just have to think about it. My goodness. And the reason you cannot think of these horrible experiences today is because they're behind you. You don't need them anymore. You've had those experiences. You don't need them. You don't want them. You have no feeling for them anymore. And you are here because you are now a higher consciousness and more aware, or your soul wouldn't have brought you here tonight to learn this information. It's information that you knew, but this brain and this new body has forgotten. So I'm just refreshing stuff that you already know as soul. It's nothing new for you. It's just information. Now that your mind has got it, it won't forget. It's got to hold on to this information. It's important. Every soul should know this stuff. It's basic teachings for us Venusians. And for human beings, it's very important. And that's what I'm trying to teach. I'm doing my best. I had workshops for years, and I sat all day with groups of people through whole weekends, day after day, because it took a lot of time to break down old concepts and real new understanding and truths for these people, and change their perception and abilities of understanding. Once you understand how wonderful and great you are and how old you are as a soul, you have a different feeling about life, about each other, about plants, animals, because you realize you were these things, and you have more compassion and love for everything. That is why it changes your view. And as people, we need minerals, plants, and animals to sustain our bodies for our existence. And we only have to be thankful and grateful. We can't fight over, is it right to eat meat or vegetables? It's all right to eat everything because it's all there for us. And the fact is, it's serving a purpose through us, and it can go on its evolutionary, path to being a person through our eating it and being thankful. Eating and partaking of all these things that serve a purpose for us. And all we have to do is be grateful. It don't matter. You can eat vegetarian, you can eat whatever you want. It's a choice. Actually, you have a choice, but it's not right or wrong. everything is not right or wrong. It's ugly, it's terrible sometimes, things that people do to each other. It's all out of not knowing and not understanding and not having right information. People harm each other, but they need these experiences. It's their level of consciousness at that time. And that's why they're there, because they're learning. And you have to learn through experience. And as horrible as it may seem, in the soul's point of view, everything is a valid experience and valuable. It's not bad or good. It's in our brains. The concepts are fed to us by our society. This is good, this is bad. And you judge and criticize when you should love and accept and say everything is all right. The only thing that's wrong is just your point of view. And that's all right too. Because we all have different points of view, but it's all right. Everybody's correct in how they see things, because they can't see it exactly the same way. And I don't expect you to, but there's no reason to have a war over it. We have to agree to disagree. And the world should be a better place when you learn to live by those kind of concepts. And that's the concepts that God wants us to live by. To enjoy life and to live life and be happy, and whatever God gives you, enjoy it, but don't go to an extreme with anything, because then you're not balanced. When you're an extremist in any way, you're not balanced and you're not going to be happy, and your body's not going to be functioning very well. Because if you're extreme about sex, about food, about drinking, about smoking or drugs or anything, it's not healthy. And I don't recommend drugs, chemical drugs, because you don't know how they're going to affect the physical body. And I can say that a cigarette or having a glass of wine or a beer or something like that, it's quite all right, and it's not going to hurt anybody unless that you abuse it or hurt somebody when you abuse it. When you abuse it, you might abuse someone or yourself, and that's not good. But the act itself is not incorrect or wrong. It's only concepts created by people in society to make taboos. This is not good. It's not acceptable because they don't like it or they don't think it's good, and they just make up all this stuff. And in reality, it's not going to hurt you. If you want to, you should, and you shouldn't worry about how you look. If you look spiritual, because this is earth. We're not in heaven. And the fact is, you can't enjoy these things in the other dimensions. And when you get so spiritual and so holy, that's where you'll be. You'll be in the upper dimensions, not on earth. You just be the best human being you can and create love around you and love everybody and be good to each other, and there's no problem. But there's a problem when you judge and criticize and hurt each other, make people feel lowly, or not, I'm not beautiful as you are, or I'm not as rich as you are, or I drink too much and he smokes too much, whatever. It's their business what they do. I say let them be happy. And don't judge, don't criticize, accept, love, and say, hey, it's okay, you do what you want to do. As long as you're not hurting me, I don't care. It's not my money. I don't buy your cigarettes or your wine or whatever. But still, just let people enjoy their life and be happy. And when this life is finished, it's not finished. You will still exist in a different energy, a different form, but your soul will still exist. This body will be behind you because you don't need it anymore. And that's just the way life is. And I really enjoy talking to you, and I appreciate you listening, and I hope I gave you a mini seminar here. It was just to give you an idea of how we see soul and being a human being, and to help you understand more. And I hope I did. And I guess that's it for tonight, except for signing books. And so we're taking a break for 10 minutes. And I'm going to go have a cigarette, by the way.
I'm explaining.
Yeah.